Hi, today I'm here with the reading of John Keats's Ode to Autumn. To Autumn is one of the most famous poems written by John Keats, and it is actually part of those famous six odes he'd written. This is maybe the shortest one, comparing to Ode to Psyche, Ode to a Nightingale, Ode on Melancholy, or Ode on Indolence, and other odes and other poems he'd written. Uh, by the way, let's go to read the poem. Before reading the poem, I must tell you that the poem is written in a way that in it the season autumn is personified as a goddess. So we see the autumn as a goddess who is now uh, shaped in form of a woman, and even she can be seen in the stanzas of the poem by other people. And according to its genre, To Autumn is an ode. And after reading the poem, I will explain what an ode is and what type of an ode this poem is categorized into. The poem starts like this with a description of autumn, season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun. This is how the personification starts. Sun, Apollo is masculine, and now Autumn is his bosom friend. So they have a conspiracy, or they are breathing side by side on a close space. So they are maybe mating, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, and these fruits and other products of autumn are their children or their, let's say, offspring, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the thatch is round. So it's the time of the ripe grapes to bend with apples, the mossed cottage trees, and the cottage trees got so heavy with these apples that they bend and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core. And this is the time that we experience the ripeness of the fruit. And after that, there would be no more fruit. So this is the ripest season that you can imagine. And unlike other poems written in literature, the poem is not a celebration of spring or summer in which everything is beautiful and green or flowers are everywhere. Rather, he's looking at the beauties of another season, autumn, in an unusual way and manner, let's say, in the history of poetry. And again, what's happening uh, between autumn, the goddess, and sun to solve the gourd. Gourd is uh, is a kind of let's say vegetable. It is grown in some places. We can say it's like a pumpkin to solve the gourd and plump the hazel shells. And hazels, it's a nut with a sweet kernel to set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees until they think warm days will never cease. The flowers are so frequent and so various, and they are everywhere that these bees would forget that there would be an end to it. So it's kind of deceiving these insects. For summer has o'erbrimmed. Why? Because summer has o'erbrimmed their camisils. O'erbrimmed means it is more than full. It's actually overflowing. And clammy means wet, damp, and sticky, like what is the hive of these bees. Who has not seen thee? Now he is addressing John Keats, or the speaker of the poem, whoever is addressing this, and the goddess or autumn is personified. Who has not seen thee? Oft amid thy store, in a barn or somewhere, the store in the autumn, the store uh, wheat and other forms of fruit, and even animals do that. So humans and animals store fruit for the cold season of winter. Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find the setting. Sometimes she is indoors, sometimes she is outdoors. They may find the setting careless on a granary floor. thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind. The wind is doing this to her hair, or they can find her in different positions, or in a half-ribbed furrow sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies. Poppies are the flowers from which opium is taken. Opium is extracted from these flowers, so it has an addictive kind of effect, or it may make you drowsy. That's why we may find autumn like that. While thy hope spares the nexus and all its twined flowers. Or we can find her just using her spear and gathering, let's say, some reaps, or she's reaping something. And sometimes, like a gleaner, thou dost keep. Gleaner, the one who has some gleans, or let's say some wheat or things like that, or a head, and sometimes like a gleaner, thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, a river, small river, or by a cider press, or you may stand by a cider press with patient look. Thou watchest the last oozing hours by hours, while they are pressing and taking the extract of the apples or other fruit. You're there watching everything. So we see autumn here actively participating in the tasks which are related to the season. And this personification is more meaningful compared with the previous stanza. And now we go to the last part of the poem. While the imagery in the previous two stanzas was actually a visual one, here we turn, or John Keats turns from visual imagery to auditory imagery. Where are the songs of spring? Where are they? So this is a question in autumn, especially if we consider autumn as near old age, or let's say middle age. Now we can ask, where is our youth? So this can be considered also as a metaphorical question. Where are the songs of spring? Where are they? Think not of them. And we are in the autumn. Think not of them. Thou hast thy music too. While barred clouds barred like in form of bars, while barred clouds bloom, the soft dying day bloom because of the color of the sunset. And so there is another thing blooming, and even in the sunset, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. Then in a wailful choir, the small gnats mourn like this. Among the river sallows, sallow is the willow tree, borne aloft or sinking as the light wind lives or dies, the branches of the trees, and full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne, like this. Hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the redbreast whistles from a garden croft, like this. Hedge crickets and the redbreast. And gathering swallows, let me stop it. And gathering swallows migrate in the season of autumn, and gathering swallows twitter in the sky like this. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. So the poem ends in that way, with the migration, or maybe at the old age or near old age, you have to be ready for death or something, for your sunset or things like that. Now let's turn to ode and have a definition of this literary term. It's a long lyric poem, so it was originally written to be accompanied by music, like other lyric forms, and it is a form of personal poem, serious in subject matter and treatment, and it is elevated in style and its diction, actually. elaborate in stanzaic structure. So the structure of the poem is an intricate one, which we are going to see how it is formed. And the original odes were written by a Greek poet, Pindar. Pindar wrote odes as encomiums or as praising or eulogizing for the athletes who won the Olympics. And then it was written to write an encomiast or a eulogy for others. So in many occasions, odes were, let's say, occasional, and they were written to praise someone or something or a special incident. Established by the Greek poet Pindar, that's why it's called Pindaric ode. The original form is called Pindaric. It is modeled on the songs of the chorus in Greek drama. I will show you how. In which the stanzas were patterned in sets of three: strophe, antistrophe, and epod. In Greek drama, when the chorus was moving over the stage, when they moved to the right, it was called the strophe. So the movement of the members of the chorus on the stage, when they moved to the right, it was called strophe, and when they moved to the left, it was called antistrophe. And when they stood still, it was called epod. So we have two movements to two opposite direction, and then we have a kind of standing still. And how does it reflect it in a poem? Let's see. A close imitation of Pindar's form with all the strophes and anti-strophes and written in one stanza. So strophes were written in one stanza pattern, and like for example, the metrical pattern and the rhyme scheme was the same in both first stanzas, and the third stanza was in another, and then it was repeating itself. So we had a pair of two similar, and then a different one, two similar, and a different. This is called a regular Pindaric ode. It is called regular Pindaric ode because actually there appeared a series of irregularities, especially in English literature. Ode generally as a literary genre was introduced to English by Abraham Cowley in 1656. So it was not familiar to English poets till that time. It's an imitation in the style and matter, but in terms of structure, maybe he couldn't follow. It disregards that recurrent stanza pattern because actually it is very difficult in English to find rhyming words. English as a language compared with other languages, Latin, Greek, or the language stemmed from those languages is less musical, and that makes lots of problems for the English poets to follow and imitate the genres and forms created by the poets of those languages. It stands established its own pattern of varying line length, number of lines, and rhyme scheme, therefore. And we have another type of ode in contrast to Horatian and to Pindaric odes, which is called the Horatian ode. The one we read here to autumn was actually Horatian ode. It's modeled on the odes of Roman Horace. It's calm, meditative, colloquial, in contrast to the passion, visionary boldness, and the formal language of Pindaric. Also, it follows a kind of uh, less formal and smoother kind of pattern. And it is homostrophic. Homostrophic means that it is written in a single repeated stanza form. The number of the lines, the pattern of the rhymes, and the metrical metrics of the poem, let's say, are the same in all stanzas. So we don't have the difference between strophe and antistrophe on the one hand and epod on the other. And each stanza is resembling the other stanza, like what John Keats has written in this three stanzas, actually the ode of three stanzas or three stanza ode. And this was my explanation. Thank you for listening.